I imagine a world where we create magic and inspire change. I believe we act without inhibition to spark innovation. We challenge convention to celebrate uniqueness. I believe in a world where we embrace your vision, to drive progress, to design the art of the possible. Dare to be bold, to be brave, to be you. At SAP, we build our future on inclusion, and we make a world for everyone. Together, we are one SAP. A culture where we don't conform. We belong. My name is Daisy. I work for SAP. This is where I belong.
You belong.
You belong.
I belong.
We belong. We all belong.
Models are still needed in the IT industry. I will also share my personal journey so far, and furthermore also share some maybe best practices from SAP when it comes to diversity and inclusion. But let me start with a short story. So, once upon a time, there was a small girl who lived her childhood in a rather modest conditions. In this rather rough neighborhood, there was a boy who was bullying children, including this small girl. One day he hit her, and he went to her father, informing, of course, what had happened. She was complaining and whining, and her father was very empathetic, but he told her to go back to the courtyard and fight back. This bullying continued, and one day this boy once again started a fight, hit her maybe again, but this time her big brother saw what happened. He went to the boy and actually had a very firm discussion with him what should be maybe the potential consequences if he didn't change his behavior. As you may already guess, this little girl is me. I was not maybe 2 years old, but I'm here in this picture. Maybe I was 10. But why I'm actually sharing this story with you? I remember that I was not totally happy with my father because of his message, but I really got a very good learning for my life. So the life is not always fair. But you need to be fighting back. You need to have a stamina, and you shouldn't let anybody to start bullying you, or undermining your fighting spirit or confidence. Also, as I mentioned, we are here to discuss whether we need role models. And I personally strongly believe that we all need role models that we can follow, where we can learn from, whether those are men or female persons. And for me, as a youngster, as a teenager, my role model was my brother. He is 8 years older, and I can tell you that he was the first time from our family who went to the university, graduated from the university, from the Faculty of Law, and he really pushed me hard to also start college and also go for my dreams. So I'm super proud of having such a great role model in my life. So then I would actually like to share, my journey and how I entered the IT industry. And I need to say that it was not really planned. As mentioned, when I graduated from the college with a degree of marketing, I strongly believe that I started working in the marketing, and in early 90s, yes, it was early 90s when I graduated. And I was looking for a job in the field of marketing, but for various reasons I couldn't find it. And therefore, I actually started to also look for other opportunities. And there was this ad by a small IT company, and they were looking for an intern. Surprisingly, I was interviewed, and furthermore, I got the job. And suddenly, I was working in IT industry. I was responsible for supporting software, Unix. Sorry, there is somebody at the door, but supporting Unix software sales, hardware sales. And I was very happy because I got a lot of education and support from many people, and started to know IT technology. Unix software. I even used the VI editor, so I really was supported. And afterwards, I was also asked to join another startup company specialized in software as well. And in both companies, 90% of the workforce was men. So you could say that gender parity was a real issue, and maybe still is. But as mentioned, my journey was not planned at all. And around 20 years ago, I joined another company called SAP. First, I was responsible for certain industry customers in Finland. And I still remember after maybe 1 year at SAP, when at that time a managing director of Finland called me and asked whether I would like to start leading a new industry team, where they brought in few persons, not only from Finland, but also from other nationalities, and I needed to start a new business. And I was surprised. Why? I never thought that I could start managing a team or leading the business. Furthermore, I didn't really believe that I had the capabilities. So what I'm here also telling, that mentorship and mentors who may see your potential is super important. So far, I have been super happy and fortunate to work with and for our people here at SAP. And I counted that I have had maybe during these 20 years 13 different roles. As mentioned, now I'm responsible for our Nordic and Baltic operations. Before this role, I spent 3 years in the US on the East Coast, where I was the Chief Operating Officer for one of our business. And also here, I never thought that I could be a COO for one of our largest business units. But when I got a call from one of the global internal recruiters, and she mentioned that they somehow just found my name through their network and asked whether I would like to be a candidate. I thought that yes, why not? And maybe my advice to all of you is, of course, to stay curious. But what I have noticed during my career, so CEO, MD, I have been leading industries in our EMEA organization. I have been part of our consulting organization responsible for consulting sales, also in EMEA, so in different countries. I have had local roles. I have had Nordic roles, so I have been also part of our Nordic organization earlier. If I would say that there was one guiding principle, that was that you can never meet all the qualification criteria. So it's great that there are people who may see potential in you, but finally, it depends on you whether you have a gut to really go for it. And what happens if you fail? It's not, the end of the world. everybody makes mistakes. I can tell you that I have made so many mistakes during my career, but how you keep on learning, and this is really a journey that we are on, where the continuous learning is one of the crucial assets and mindsets that we need to have. Another maybe a kind of slogan and quote that I love to use is that if it doesn't challenge you, it won't change you. And also when we, for instance, reflect that what happens in IT industry, it is the industry that is changing so rapidly. You could say that every single company is now a software company, regardless of the industry that they operate in. Why? Because everything is so connected. Digitalization is key. So it keeps on challenging us. And as mentioned, it's very much about the mindset that whether we keep on learning, and then additionally, as mentioned, are brave enough to jump into a cold water and start experiencing something that we haven't experienced in the past. Then maybe another kind of reflection, and it was thank you very much for having me. When I got the invitation, of course, I needed to start reflecting. And for me, it has been always also very important to set certain goals. And in order to cope in a very, very hectic working environment, we sometimes also need to focus. And when we need to focus, we need to deselect some other areas. But be true to your values. You see the picture, actually it's a rather old picture. So I'm a mother of two sons, the small kids here, they are already almost adults, or another one is already 25. And I found myself in a new life situation 20 plus years ago when I met my second husband, who also had two children from his first marriage. And also, you know, I would like to say that I wouldn't like to actually take a day out from my life, and I needed to start learning new type of capabilities or mindset. How you bring up 4 children in a very fair way, whether those are your children or his children, and make sure that there is always high integrity. And I suppose these are also the values that you need to have as a leaders. But also, as mentioned, we need to accept that there are trade-offs. I made a promise 10 years ago that I run 1 marathon per year so far, or until I turn 50. I'm over 50, I don't need to keep that promise anymore. So I have actually, I kept it, but it's always, you need to have some trade-offs. If you need to work very hard, maybe you cannot always have your workouts in the evenings. If you need to be spend time with your family, there might be some work events or meetings where you need to say that, sorry, I'm not available. But yes, it's sometimes challenging and it's not easy to really balance your work life and so have the work life balance, and furthermore also keep on learning in order to achieve your goals. Then about SAP. So at SAP we have a very ambitious, yet I should say that hopefully realistic diversity and inclusion missions. And here you can see some key facts. So right now we have maybe a little bit more than 40% of our workforce is women. We have 25% of our leaders are female leaders, and we want to be 50-50 rather soon. And what is key is that SAP's workforce should reflect the diversity of our societies. Of course, it includes this gender parity, but it should also reflect some other diversity topics, whether that is racial experience, age groups. Super important, because I strongly believe that a strong team is only strong if we ensure that we have people with different backgrounds, different genders, we have different age groups, in order to make sure that we have all these skills, competencies, mindsets that are needed in order to cope in this industry and be successful. Then maybe a few words about SAP Nordics. We truly want to create a culture of inclusive collaboration. And when we are talking about the diversity, as mentioned, for me, it's not only about the gender or even or about the age, but it's also very important that we create inclusive culture where there's a belonging. And for me, belonging is something where people can really relate to, and they know that they can and they are belonging to an organization that respect these people as individuals, and they can be very authentic. We also want to keep, of course, identifying the best talent in the market. But I would say that it's sometimes even easier to hire new talent, also young talent. But the key challenge is to retain young talent. And therefore, you need to make sure that you have right leadership principles. And for me, these leadership principles is that there is very supportive yet authentic leadership style, walk the talk. We keep on supporting everybody that they can keep on developing their skills. We need to make sure that there are new opportunities available for these people, whether those are young men or women. And right now in the Nordics, our women's share in total workforce is 31.3. But I'm actually very happy when I saw the statistics just recently that actually women are represented in our early talent pool. And then we also identified catalysts, so people who may have even more potential than others. And I was also super happy to see that women that we have been able to hire and retain, and they are super talented people. But I would say that still we have a lot of work to do. And I want to share you one example, a recent example. So we are in the habit of having a yearly kickoff for all of our employees in the Nordic and Baltic countries. And of course, now because of the pandemic, we needed to host this virtually. And we had a rather nice agenda, but then I also asked our extended leadership team to be together on stage. So we actually produced a song where we were singing and playing some instruments, of course, now virtually. And my son, our youngest son, who is now 17, saw that video, and he just asked that, "Mom, don't you hire any young people?" And then I noticed that, yes, my extended leadership team is rather oldish. So yes, there is still some work to be done. And finally, in order to also keep the timeline, I can only share some of my key learnings. So yes, also in IT industry, whether you are an expert, you are managing a business, you are working in product development, finally, of course, there is the assumption that you can achieve your goals, and also you bring the necessary results. So that is key in order to be successful. But overall, when you are curious and you want to learn more, you are also willing to speak up and come up with new ideas, if those would be. I'm sure that if there is a good diversity and especially inclusion and good culture in the company, then you will be seen. And then finally, when there are new opportunities, please go for these opportunities. And as we all know, I'm pretty sure that many of us have read books and articles about the differences between men and women. We know that especially women tend to check all the qualification criteria that have been set for one position or role. And if they see that maybe I'm only meeting 80% of these criteria, maybe I won't qualify. And I wouldn't say so. Sometimes actually you can bring even more to the role and to the table if you are not perfect fit, because you may have something else that makes that team or that position even stronger based on your experiences. And also, one thing that has been super important, at least for me, is to be authentic yourself. Especially as a young manager or young expert, you may feel a pressure to copy paste a behavior or a kind of style of a more senior person. No, let's be authentic ourselves. And furthermore, for me, in order to really to summarize, to drive the true diversity and inclusion culture is culture. And it's not to put all these nice words, themes on a slide. It's not even to put some KPIs and only to focus on meeting these KPIs. That is not important, but how we are living these promises on a daily basis. And I would say that the pressure is on us, on leaders, to lead from the front. And building a culture of role model leadership will be key in driving this change in IT industry. And there is a quote by Sheryl Sandberg, who is Facebook's COO, and she has been one of my also role models that I have been following ever, or at least during the last 10 years. And I like how she actually mentioned that the word female may not be even needed in the future. So we are not talking about female leaders or female experts or female pilots, but there will be only us people. And then maybe we have really achieved a true diverse working environment in our companies. And as mentioned, I would like to end this presentation by just reminding all of us, let's be authentic and let's be yourselves. And my promise, at least to our organization, is to be role model of leading our teams in the front. And furthermore, how I measure my success at the end of the day is to see whether I have been able to support some of our both male but also female co-workers to accelerate their development and seek for new opportunities. So thank you from my side.